all he's really done is mess up two perfectly good parties and is about to mess up a third. So, it's fine to have, a strong following, a strong personal following, if you're actually delivering on what you say you're going to deliver on. But there's no point creating a party that's really just a vehicle for one man to, achieve his ambitions of getting into Downing Street. That's not what I got into politics for. That's not what any of my voters voted for. And it's gonna cause the party to, blow up.
So on the surface, the good news for Nigel Farage and Reform UK is currently coming in droves. So no wonder the MSM is in full-on panic and destroy mode. Farage is now every bookmaker's favourite to be the next PM. And to be honest, they're a far better judge than the losers in Westminster, given the bookies have to put their money where their mouth is. And another bombshell poll today shows Reform UK posed to seize control of Wales at the Senate election in just a year if this astonishing trend from YouGov continues. Now, I've always been clear I am a critical friend to Reform UK, someone who voted for them, but wants to ensure they don't continue this horrible tack to the centre, becoming just another Tory light establishment party opposed to making the big decisions required on issues like mass deportations and the NHS. Now, its leadership, especially the ego-mad chairman Zia Youssef, who reported Rupert Lowe to the cops for hurty words, doesn't like that, however. But they should be careful what they wish for, because I would argue the party's real enemies are in the MSM. The MSM, who they have been so desperate to win over, but are now going for the kill. So the latest hysteria is over a perfectly reasonable post on X from the new Reform UK Accrington North councillor on the Lancashire County Council, Joel Tetlow, who wrote alongside a picture of Hitler and Nazi generals looking at war plans, "Why don't we invade them slowly? A few boats at a time. Don't be stupid, that will never work." Now, with his post on X, he added, "Let's be grateful this idea was never put to him, or the world as we know it would be a whole lot different." So, of course, cue hysteria, sly news saying that the guy should be suspended, the British bashing corporation pushing for exactly the same thing. But as Carl Benjamin pointed out, the BBC have buried the lead here. The man posted an anti-Hitler post and compared the Channel invasion to the Nazis, but that didn't stop the desperate Labour MP Chris Webb purposefully misrepresenting the meaning of the post to attempt further lawfare against Tetlow, writing dishonestly, "This is not just acceptable, it is an affront to the values we hold dear. Such behaviour is a flagrant violation of the Councillor Code of Conduct and undermines the trust placed in public officials. There is no room for hate or extremism in our political discourse, and we must unequivocally condemn this conduct. I call upon Joel Tetlow to immediately delete this offensive comment and urge Reform UK to take decisive action by suspending him immediately. Representatives must be held to the highest standard to ensure that they reflect the values of our constituents and uphold the dignity of public office." Insane. Absolutely insane. Because there is an invasion of our country via the southern border. And I totally agree with the point that he was making. But of course, that hysteria from Reform's real enemies, their real enemies, Labour and the MSM, saw Tetlow bullied into deleting his tweet, although at this point, Reform UK hasn't suspended him, despite a very obvious purge going on of other Reform UK councillors with perfectly sound views. That saw this headline from former Reform candidate at the general election, Richard Thompson, in The Express, who wrote, "Nigel Farage's cowardice and ego is slapping betrayed Britons in the face all over again. The Reform UK leader talks tough on the biggest issues of our time, but where is the delivery?" And there was this broadside too from ex-Reform MP Rupert Lowe on mass deportation, where, by the way, he is increasingly receiving support from the Tories of his plan, who posted, "I will take no politician or political party moaning about illegal immigration seriously unless they commit to deporting every single illegal migrant, both arriving and currently living in the UK. It is really not that complicated to say they all need to go home." But no reform renegade has caused more trouble for the party than Donna Edmunds, a brilliant woman who is the founder of the National Archive for the Survivors of Grooming Gangs and a regional director for the excellent Great British Pack. But she has described the party as a Nigel Farage cult and accused the leader of treating its members with contempt. In a statement, she said, "I thought I was joining a party. It turned out I had joined a political cult," adding, "Reform absolutely is a cult of personality at war with its own grassroots, complete madness. This is the last thing the country needs right now. We need a strong party on the right that can actually deliver, not the cult of Nigel Farage." Now, as you can imagine, and loads of Outspoken viewers are divided on this, it has prompted fury from the Faragists within Reform, like Lee Hurst, who countered on X. She is working straight out of the Rupert Lowe playbook. "I hope he and her will be very happy together," being as she posted that she would defect the moment he sets up a party, which led to her suspension. "I suppose the usual suspects will leap to her defense and ignore the fact that she is out because she planned treachery in plain sight and was suspended for it. Good riddance to it." Well, as the Reform UK civil war deepens, I'm delighted to say that to respond in her first interview, Donna Edmunds joins the Superstar panel today alongside the brilliant Jasmine Birtles, the founder of Money Magpie and a contributor to News Uncut. So, Donna Edmunds, Lee Hurst, and lots of the Farages within Reform UK are not happy with you at all. What about the people who say, well, actually, maybe we need a personality cult? Like, is MAGA in the US with Donald Trump not a personality cult? Maybe the cult of Nigel Farage is what's going to see him enter number 10 Downing Street.
Well, I doubt that. I mean, the thing is that, Trump actually brings the goods. Farage doesn't, or certainly hasn't so far. In fact, all he's really done is mess up two perfectly good parties and is about to mess up a third. So, it's fine to have, a strong following, a strong personal following if you're actually delivering on what you say you're going to deliver on. But there's no point creating a party that's really just a vehicle for one man to achieve his ambitions of getting into Downing Street. That's not what I got into politics for. That's not what any of my voters voted for. And it's gonna cause the party to, blow up.
And so you say Nigel has betrayed the members of Reform UK. How specifically has he done that?
Well, he has made the party all about himself. So one of the things that I was not happy about, and many people were not happy about, was the fact that our leaflets, said much more about Nigel. They had his face all over them. We, the candidates, were sort of relegated to a small corner of the leaflet. Now, I've always believed, and I still believe, that we live in a representative democracy. You're meant to be voting for the candidate, not for the party. Farage has flipped that. You're voting for Farage and not for the candidate. He's essentially, in the same way as Labour completely smashed our democracy by putting in all sorts of very, very, policies that actually broke our system. He's adding to that, because what he's doing is he's again moving voters away from voting for their actual representative and into voting for the party, the shine, the brand, the man. We don't live in a presidential system. We don't live in that kind of American style democracy. We actually have a very strong storied history of our own. We pretty much invented modern democracy, and he's destroying that with playing these silly games.
How did you feel when Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform UK, reported Rupert Lowe to the police in the type of lawfare that I would argue is usually something that the left conducts, right, against people
Absolutely.
on the right? And this file, we learn, and I cannot believe this file has now been passed to the CPS, meaning that there's at least a chance of a criminal charge, although Rupert's team say this is usual standard practice if you're dealing with an MP. I'm shocked by that, because I've had lots of death threats that the police have ignored because they say there is no obvious threat to your life. Now, no one can tell me that Rupert Lowe posts an obvious threat to the life of Zia Yusuf. How difficult was that moment within the party? Because for me, that's when I noticed everything changed. But first, Father's Day is just around the corner, and let's be honest, Dad does not need another coffee mug or pair of socks. It's time to give him something he will actually use. Meet the Chairman Pro from Manscaped, the perfect Father's Day gift for the dad who deserves to look and feel his best. Now, this just isn't any razor. The Chairman Pro is a high-tech, dad-approved grooming upgrade. It's an electric face shaver that can tackle up to 5 days of growth and features 2 interchangeable blade heads. Whether he's cleaning up for golf, dinner, or just another accidental nap on the recliner, make sure he does it in style. The Chairman Pro is perfect for the dad who taught you how to shave and now needs a reminder of how it's really done. So have him join the over 12 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and use the code Outspoken for 15% off your entire order at manscaped.com. But let me tell you a little bit more about this brilliant product, because it has 2 interchangeable skin-safe blade heads. The skin-safe 4-blade foil is for that super close shave, and the skin-safe stubble trimmer is for that sophisticated 5 o'clock shadow look. Both are designed to help reduce razor burn and irritation so skin feels smooth and comfortable after every shave. Flex Adjust technology features a 360-degree contouring head and blades that flex and adjust to the contours of the face and neck, helping maintain great contact on skin at every angle. It's waterproof, so it can be used in the shower or rinsed under the sink after use, making cleanup a breeze. And since Dad is always telling you to charge your phone, now he can take his own advice thanks to the digital battery display. It showcases the battery level so he knows when it's time to recharge. And with up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, Dad can take his time getting the perfect shave. By the way, Manscaped comes with a 2-year warranty on all powered devices, giving you peace of mind with every use. So get your dad a Father's Day gift he'll actually use, and get the Chairman Pro today for 15% by using the code Outspoken when you check out at manscaped.com. That's 15% off your entire order with the code Outspoken at manscaped.com. But now, back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you that I was furious. Pretty much everyone I know in the party was absolutely furious. Again, we joined Reform because we wanted a really strong alternative to what we've already got with Labour and the Conservatives. And by playing these silly games, these silly Westminster games, everybody backbiting, everybody, reporting each other and all the rest of it, Reform is essentially becoming a third wing of the Uniparty. And that's not its purpose, it's not its mandate. That's not what people are voting for when they vote Reform. So why bother with it? This is my problem, really.
And that is such a concern. That is such a concern to me, Jasmine Birtles, because here is the fundamental issue, right? We need a party that is going to create real change. Now, I think maybe that could still be Reform UK, but there are some really worrying signs, Jasmine, of like this slow tack to the centre. And of course, the biggest issue that I'm concerned about is mass deportations of the 2 million illegals that are already here, which Nigel Farage said was impossible, seems to have done a slight U-turn on that since. But Jasmine, what about NHS reform, which has been a great passion of Nigel Farage's career, a great passion of Anne Widdecombe's career, who's in there as one of the senior spokespeople Reform UK. Zia Yusuf has just thrown that out the window because clearly he's too worried about polling showing that it's unpopular. It's like, we have to have some unpopular decisions, or this country is going to be not only destroyed from a cultural perspective, but destroyed economically.
Yeah, so much to unpick there. I do. This is, I would say, the fundamental problem of politics, that people go into politics with very definite views, quite often genuinely wanting to make a good difference, to change the world, to do this, that, or whatever it is that they believe. And then they find that they're not going to be voted in if they say 100% what they believe. And the vast mass of voters are kind of sort of somewhere vaguely towards the centre, left centre, right centre. So then the question is, okay, how do we kind of hang on to what we basically believe in, but don't say it too loudly so that we can get the votes in? Because, there again, do you get voted in, or do you just stick with your principles? And there are good reasons to do either of those. And it sounds to me like Farage and Yusuf are trying to kind of go somewhere in between both of those, keeping one foot in the principles, but at the same time getting a few toes into the let's get some more votes and let's not be thrown out this time. It's a tightrope that they're walking, and one of the reasons why I'm personally not an MP. I can't do that.
No, indeed. I mean, look, the problem is you can look at this from loads of points of view, can't you? Which is that in some ways you have to think, okay, who is the most likely to create change? And at the moment, you could say Nigel Farage is the most likely. However, at the same time, sometimes morals have to come first. And I think what Nigel said, for example, on GB News, in regards to Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe, when he had the first chance post the election to try and bring the right together. And remembering he also attacked GB News itself and Tommy Robinson and Tommy Robinson's supporters as the alt-right, which is actually a white nationalist slur, which is quite something. I just worry that actually he has no intention of doing that. It's almost like he specifically wants to purge himself of people on the right, whereas I actually think we should be celebrating people on the right. But in case you missed it, this is what he said.
Would you have him back now in the party, Rupert Lowe, after all of this? Ben Habib, is there a way back for Ben?
Over my dead body.
Well, he wrote a piece saying you didn't deserve your victory. Did you see it?
I mean, I'm sorry, you get these small, very insignificant people who
say what you think, Nigel.
Who think they're more important than they are. They're frankly nothings. There you are.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't mind people sounding off. I don't mind people disagreeing with me. I never have done. As long as there's some fundamental underlying loyalty. And that's the one thing I demand.
Donna, how did you feel about that? And do you think it's a fair point for him to say, look, as a party leader, you need a degree of loyalty? I mean, Donald Trump, for example, sacked loads of people who did not give him undying loyalty.
Loyalty, yes. Oh, sorry, Donna.
Sorry, I was going to, loyalty goes both ways is what I would say to that. I mean, I think the party, everybody I know who's in the party really just wants to get the country back on track. And we are very happy to put our weight behind any leader who will get us there. Now, if Farage wants to be that leader, and, I'd love him at this point, because Reform are in the best position to, have a Damascene moment and realize the error of his ways and say, okay, let's maybe, play this a little bit better with the party itself, manage the party better itself. If he wanted to instill loyalty, I'm sure there would be a lot of people who would be loyal. But what's actually happening in the party is that whole branches are being purged. Perfectly good candidates are being replaced by people parachuted in. We have had all this from the other parties for so many years. Everyone's sick of it. No one wants to play that game anymore. This is not what Reform is meant to be. And he's throwing it away. He's throwing away the loyalty that a lot of people would have had for him. There's a lot of goodwill out there, and he's just completely burnt it to a crisp.
Yeah, it's a big shame because, as you say, loyalty is really, really important, particularly with a growing brand, as it were, and that's how one sees Reform. I'm very disappointed by the language and the ungraciousness of describing somebody as insignificant. One should never do that, however unpleasant whatever you consider the criticisms to be. I think that's a very poor show, and that's a very poor show, particularly from a leader. We need grace. We need graciousness in public life, and we've lost much of that over the last few decades.
I totally agree. I guess the counter to this, and I'm just looking at a brand new poll from Find Out Now, which shows Reform UK surging to its biggest lead with 33% of the vote. Labour is on 20% of the vote, the Conservatives 16%, the Lib Dems on 15%, the Greens on 11%. So I imagine what Nigel Farage would be saying to you, Donna, was, well, I'm sorry, we're at 30%. And that's what we need. And maybe we don't need you. And that's really upsetting for me, of course. But he would argue this is why the tack to the centre has happened.
I think he's playing a very dangerous game because, there's 30% out there. I would say that's 30% of the country who is desperate for change. They are absolutely crying out for somebody who's going to be a champion of the people. And as I keep saying, it's his to lose, right? He has that polling. There's a lot of goodwill out in there in the country. A lot of people want real change and a real alternative to the Conservatives and the Tories, and Labour. And if he, picks up that baton and runs with it, that election is his to win. But he won't win it if he starts to stab good people in the back, if he starts to badmouth, to perfectly decent people who just want the country to be a better place to live. And I honestly don't know why he's doing it. I mean, it's the most ludicrous strategy. If you've got strong poll, you've got a country that's desperate for you, and you've got a whole team of players who are like, great, let's get out there, what can we do with this? Why on earth would you start going to war with your own grassroots? It doesn't make any sense.
Nigel himself is the biggest brand. I know you've had June Slater on the programme, Dan, and June talks to people outside supermarkets, and she says, who do you recognise out of this list? And Nigel Farage is one of them. You've got Ben Habib and maybe a couple of others, and everybody says Nigel Farage. So as far as the voters are concerned, Nigel literally is reform.
Just because you know him, it doesn't mean you like him.
Oh, no, a lot of them don't. Yes, that's very true. But
very good point. Very, very good point. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.